Fantastic. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Texas Author Series at the Latino Bookstore at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. My name is Tony Diaz, the Libro Traficante, and I should say this will be my last day hosting as the literary curator. It's heartbreaking for myself here at the Latino Bookstore at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. However, this is not the end of the story, of course. It's just a new chapter. But I do want to say it's been a real pleasure to get to work with Cristina Bailly, director of the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center, who envisioned a Latino bookstore in the middle of the West Side where there once was a book desert. And you really put a lot of love into this facility. I'm so happy I've been able to tend to it for a little bit as we get the infrastructure going. And of course, we're still going to team up on many different things. So this is an oral contract. So today we are, of course, live streaming, and this is on the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center Facebook page. Of course, we're also streaming it on Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say. This will also become a radio episode for the Nuestra Palabra radio show in Houston, Texas, at 90.1 FM KPFT. It will also become a podcast that will give to Christina, of course, Edward and Jesse, and it'll become part of our collection as well. I do want to thank Rodrigo Bravo, who's been archiving so many of these for us. I'd like to give him a round of applause, and Roxana Guzman, who's behind the scenes. And I mentioned that also because this is a partnership, too, between the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center and Nuestra Palabra. So I do want to say that this chapter is coming to an end like a good book, but the story's not over. And one thing that we'll be tending to is more to what's going on in Houston, Texas at Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say. It breaks my heart to not come back every week. However, every month. However, in Houston, Nuestra Palabra was named the Houston Cultural Treasure. We received a grant from the BIPOC Arts Network Fund. We've opened an office. So on June 25th, we will be rolling out our new endeavors, which will include an online presence, where we'll have a weekly author and also a Latino visual artist. We also received a grant from the Brown Foundation, so we'll be having our global reading series with an exchange with Mexico, El Salvador. And in October, we're still working together. I think I can mention that in October, we're very happy. The Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center and the Latino Bookstore are so proud to be one of the partners for the national launch of the Library of Congress's Latino Poetry Anthology. So it's going to be a huge festival here the second Friday of October. The day before that, there'll be so many school visits and then also film screenings, and then there'll be a full-fledged party the next day. But I only mention that because we want to make sure that the authors who are here today tienen casa aquí in San Antonio, where there once was a book desert, and their books are in inventory here. There's lesson plans for some of the books. And tienen casa in Houston, Texas también. And we got to guarantee at least two of these bastions because we know that there are forces at work that want to make it harder for our community to get their hands on books by and about themselves. They want their minds closed. They want their imaginations closed. We are going to continue to defy them because we are expressions of where they cannot touch, and what they cannot close are our hearts, imaginations, our talent, and these spaces. So we are going to make it rain books throughout the I-10 corridor, and people are going to take note of what's going on in Texas. It's going to be another boom for what's going on, and we're going to make that. It's only a 2-hour and 40-minute drive sometimes. It's a piece of cake. And want to make sure that people continue to see us working together. So hats off to what you've been doing, Christina. And I look forward to the predecessor that will be the literary curator. And I look forward to Nuestra Palabra and the Guadalupe and the Latino Bookstore continue their partnership. And I'm glad we're talking to these two writers today because they have this legacy as well. So today, of course, we're featuring two writers. And I'll say both of their names first and give one of them a little longer introduction. Our second reader would be Edward Vidaurre, By Throat by Miracle. And of course, he's sitting here. We can't just ignore him. So he'll be reading second. Of course, he is the publisher of Flower Song Press. So, tienes casas aquí for your writers y también in Houston, Texas. Okay, so we really expect to put a lot of miles on your tires. Exactly, exactly. And also, kicking it off will be someone who's been a teacher to a lot of the folks who I've been talking to. So once we put your name on the flyers, people are saying that was my teacher, and he's the author of Amapolasong, Jacinto Jesus Cardona, and of course that will also become a curriculum guide for grammar school coming up. And I do want to mention that you're the author of two poetry books, Pan Dulce and Amapola Song, in juxtaposing English and Spanish words like Libro Breath and Chavalon Bones. He celebrates growing up Tex-Mex in Alice, the hub of South Texas. Cardenas is the recipient of 5 National Endowment for the Humanities Visiting Scholar Awards to various universities, including a 1983 Harvard Award. His poem Bato con Quequis was selected for performance as part of New York City Symphony Space Writing Program. He currently teaches English and creative writing at Incarnate Word High School. And of course, we hope that you'll make this a part of your family library or underground library. And afterwards, he'll be signing copies. So, Jacinto, if you kindly come up and present your book, please. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Mother's Day is coming up. So my mom was and is a major influence in my life. My father also. They were my role models, and we know that we all stand on the shoulders of giants. We're here because of them. So I want to start with a poem from Amapolasong. I am not born yet. I am not born yet when father's fate at the wheel of a 32 Ford is to pass a freight truck on the blind side, getting his left arm smashed. My grandmother, Teofila, begs Dr. Dunlop not to amputate father's crushed elbow. His left arm forever remains stiff. Unable to lift much, father washes dishes for Gus Melis, who eventually allows father to make sandwiches for oil field roughnecks. But he leaves for Palacios, booming with young World War II recruits from an army tent camp. I'm not born yet when mother, taken in by relatives on the west side of San Antonio, gives in to the illusion of blinking stars, floating clouds at the Majestic Theater, passing her orphan hours, falling in love with Tyrone Powers, dark looks, his widow's peak. When her sister Juana hears of the army camp, they too go seek their fortune in Palacios, a small fishing town by the Gulf Coast. I'm not born yet when a fry cook and a waitress met, when they whispered like lovers do on a silent silver screen, and here I am. They met. My mom, unbeknownst to her, or she hadn't thought about it, we're on the coast, and she was terrified of hurricanes. And all of us, she realized, oh my goodness, there's hurricanes here. So she told my dad, no, aquí no vamos a estar. And so my dad said, well, yo tengo una casita, I have a little house in Alice, and that's how come I grew up in Alice, Texas. I wasn't born there, but I was there all my life. My dad, being a fry cook, it was hot, and in those days, so I mean, For one owner that it worked, he locked the back door, which of course if there was a fire in the kitchen, now they were going to get out because he didn't want the cooks uh, getting some food and somebody would be knocking at the back door and it would be a relative or maybe their own son and daughter, and that was me. I often would go there and knock to get the keys to the car because we only had one car, and but then he always had a hamburger or something to give me, so the man just locked the back door. um, and being a hot kitchen, of course, he would drink occasionally, but in Alice, there was this fantastic bar. It was called the Alibi. And they, oh my goodness, the Alibi Club. ¿Dónde estás? Pues estoy en el Alibi. Mother waits in the car. Father steps out of the Alibi. She's upset. Cerveza once again on his breath. Next stop at the Rex. We watch Cat People. I remember a panther gets hit, its black body sleek in the headlights. At the zoo, the cat woman lies dead by the open gate of the big cat cage. And all good drinkers know that they have to appease their wife. So one of my favorite observations was Saturday night. My mom was all excited, but it's payday, and of course, payday meant something else for my dad. And so she would all get dressed up, and I remember the earrings, and she put them on, and then I knew Dad was in trouble when one would come off, and we were waiting for him. When's Dad gonna come? And then I knew donuts were gonna be in town when the other one fell off, because eventually we would come home and like every good drinker, they bring an offering to the wife because they know they're in big trouble. So he would bring a bucket full of donuts, I remember, and we would already be sleeping on the floor, and I would hear something go by, and it was an eclair or a donut, and I wake up my little brother Raul and say, "Hey Raul, there's flying donuts, dude!" And then okay, because my mom was so mad. This is what I think of your donut, And so the Alibi Club. And one of my favorite movies, and when I watch it, all of this comes back to me, Cat People. And it was from 1942. And my father, as a fry cook, he would take me there to introduce me to the waitress or the cooks, especially because I was tongue-tied. I would not talk. I think I was about 5 years old, and I would just say yes or no, something like that. I was tongue-tied. On his day off, father takes his tongue-tied child for a ride downtown. The silent son imbibes sights and sounds. He refuses to speak. A waitress at the 5-cent seat tries to bribe the tongue-tied child with lifesavers, but nothing provokes his stubborn vocal cords. The fry cook's compa jokes that it must be the hum of Indio blood. Maybe the tickle of a buzzing chicharra on the child's lips will do the trick. Father shakes his head, drives away, still hoping for a raindrop in a drought. And my mom continued the struggle, laconic. I am 2 years old when the supersonic doomsday atomic bomb zooms to Earth. I seldom spoke. Mother buys tonics for her seemingly moronic son, but does not consult a priest for fear neighbors will think demonic. So we go see Blanca, La Curandera in Corpus Christi, sparkling city by the seaside, who lives above a botanica on Morgan Street, La Calle Morgan. Her driveway, a mix of mud and seashells. She says it's nothing chronic. suggests a devil-chasing amulet. I stay laconic until seventh grade when my history teacher, who saw in me something of a refugee, takes me out into the hall for a pep talk. He was from Nashville, Tennessee. I heard he died that summer in a car wreck. He wore penny loafers. And having spoken Spanish first and then English, I would go to the library. I used to ask my elementary teacher, Miss, may I go to la library? And my teacher would tell me, Jesse, it's library, not library. But to little Mexicanito me, I love library because it rhymed with strawberry. So I was already messing with rhymes. So I was messing with rhymes. Yeah. And this is the one that's so special to me, being that it's going to be Mother's Day. Mother never read to me. I realized that I was reading to her, and I was rereading in English, and she didn't know English, and she was illiterate. A lot of times, I would tell people that to let them know, and they thought she would read or write in Spanish, but no, she was completely illiterate, neither Spanish nor English. And then this is Mother Never Read to Me. No, the first time Mother ever saw the inside of a school was when she took me by the hand. No, Mother never read to me. She was more into the blue, indigo of Monday morning laundry with Radio Jalapeno on her windowsill. She was more into the sizzle of cominos and picadillo plates, more into the grip of an early morning broom sweeping dust balls across linoleum floors. No, Mother never read to me. She was more into standing by her ironing board under a single light, pressing sleeves and cuffs late into the night. No, Mother never read to me, but in her eyes I could see her dreams were puffs of past cotton fields. And she told me the story about how she was a sharecropper's daughter. She was not allowed to go to school. The boys, some of them did. And she would run to the kitchen window because she would make a lonche for the men that worked out in the cotton fields, because she knew that the owner of the farm had two little girls, and she would run through the window when she would hear the buggy approaching, because she would get to see two little girls in frilly dresses, but best of all, a satchel on their lap to a place she knew she was never going to go. And so she gave me this poem because I asked her one time, how come you didn't go to school, Mom? She said, no, por la primera vez que yo vi una escuela es cuando te llevé. And so Mom was so special. And the my dad, of course, being a fry cook, he also had his contributions to inspire me. This one is back in 1957. Back in 1957, I was just another Latin American boy, deep into khaki pants, steam iron pleats, gaudy cufflinks, impressed by the passive parking meters on Main Street, mesmerized by the chrome spokes of customized wheels. I would laugh and laugh at how I took my black shellac, celebrating the edges of my orange staces, my dancing shoes, anxious to shake loose the alkaline kiss of caliche down my unpaved streets. Caught in the vortex of oil wells and taco shells, Spanish was my first, English was my second, but Star Spangled Spanglish became my middle name. So was I Tex or was I Mex? Part-time Aztec, or was I your classic borderline case? Biped and bilingual, I even wore bifocals, but my biceps remained monolingual. Que loco! Back in 57, I could care less and less because I could always laugh. Con Cantinflas at the ranch drive-in. And there were some sad moments. Uh, my mom was, very high-spirited, and sometimes she was not feeling well. And one day she looked at me and she just said, "Tú, ponte a trabajar." And she sent me out into the street to look for a job. And wow, I had to put my book down. uh, I walked penniless. I walked penniless all night long, looking for work in my hush puppies. I'm not destitute. I'm still in high school. It's just that I am inept, cannot hit the nail on the head. A freeze is in the forecast. Old mechanics toss and turn, dream of stuck thermostats. A kettle whistle steams a kitchen window where a Mexican couple unfold a new tablecloth to sip chocolate, the fabled drink of the Aztec gods. At a Shamrock filling station, I fill out my application. The manager stabs his styrofoam cup with a toothpick. An old truck clanks, sputtering a vapor trail. And having mentioned Chocolate, my first book, Pan Dulce, very proud of this book because the cover is by an artist and a friend of mine and an ex-student, Alex Rubio. And I taught at Kennedy from 74 to 2000. And he was always getting in trouble, and his mom was very concerned about him. And the gangs were starting all over the place. And so I arranged a reception for him. I told him, "You're an artist, man, and they get receptions." And so I helped him out. And then I told him, one day I'm going to have a book, a poetry. I want you to do the cover for me. And this is the cover he made for the poem. Pan dulce. So chocolate and pan dulce. You can't go wrong with that, right? No matter where you're at. Pan dulce. I remember riding my fenderless bike to La Panaderia del Pueblo. Sometimes I would go alone. Sometimes I would dream I took abuelo by the hand. I remember pan dulce tasting even sweeter after confessing my sins at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. Nothing like dulcified bread for crucified bones. And I remember standing in front of the glass displays, telling El Panadero, "I'll take one of these and one of those and one of these." Unlike the cool Pachuco who came in asking for pan de polvo, un regalo, y un hueso azucarado to go, I had not mastered the names of pan dulce. So imagine my thrill. Imagine the authority in my chavalon bones when I returned asking for dos huesos azucarados, 2 sugared bones to go. Yes, I remember pan dulce, La Virgen de Guadalupe bordered by blue neon lights, and how the smell of canela reminded me of abuelito's piloncillo skin. And I'll close my reading with Amapolasong. And my daughter put this together, and she saw to it that it would get published. And Amapolasong is the title, and here is the poem. And it's dedicated to my younger brother, who shared with me those flying donuts, who died in 1994, Raul Cardona. May he rest in peace. Amapolasong. Dear Amapolas, you don't remember me, but I first felt your pink presence when I was a child in the hub of South Texas. Mother took my brother, Raul, and me, and my cousin Corina for an Easter Sunday in El Campo. No fancy city park for us, no más los mezquites y los huizaches, el solecito dancing off the colorful cellophane wrappings on our Easter baskets, y mi prima llena de risa en la primavera. Amapolas. Your pink presence blooms in places that seldom receive attention. Abandoned houses, vacant lots, cracked sidewalks, and you love to bloom by telephone poles. But what I remember best are your seeds memorizing that same skimpy spot in front of my hometown house. Amapolas, amapolas, say it slowly. Amapolas. Accent on the penultimate syllable. Savor the penultimate syllable. Po, a puff, a primavera breath. Amapolas, I always wanted to write amapolas solas en el sol. Amapolas alegres. Amapolas growing por la calle Zarzamora. Amapolas, amapolas de mis abriles. I used to be a Tex-Mex juvenile pursuing the full power of the pink primrose path in Aslan, Texas, USA. Gracias, mil gracias for the plethora of pink amapolas. Amapolas. Recuerdo la villita y la raza cósmica, dancing polkas, spinning into oblivion, the alkaline kiss of polvo deep anxieties. With our dancing shoes crisscrossing the cosmic spaces of West Side dancehalls, éramos puros corazones, como las amapolas solas, color de rosa, gozando, gozando, bailando, bailando, gozando, gozando. Dear amapolas, blow your pink pagan breath upon my grave, like a midnight kiss upon that old mystic mesquite, and may my bones rest in peace like whispered kisses of past Amapolasongs. Thank you so much, and Tony, and everyone who's come out to share the poetry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very touching and beautiful. And it really gives me great joy that you're sharing your poetry. And I want to put this in context. And I want to stress, no corporate bookstore is coming here. We wait for them to come. This remains a book desert. And all of our communities in the United States of America are ensconced in book deserts. And this isn't just a store. This is a movement. This is a cultural history that we're experiencing. So while Jacinto is sharing some of his works, and by the way, I've purchased my book and I look forward to having it signed. And that's the beautiful thing about what we do. It's not just the product, it's the story as it becomes part of my family library. But as you read it, I mentioned earlier, this will be broadcast. Right now it's being broadcast on the internet. It will be broadcast on 90.1 FM KPFT on our radio show. Portions may air on fox26houston.com. We'll send you the podcast. That will be out in the ether world as well. But the book will be here, and folks can come during working hours to enjoy your work. But you're reading that work in front of another part of our legacy. I do want to remind folks that during the this year for the Texas Author Series, we did have two of the scholars and founders of the Refusing to Forget project. And here then you have some of the history that they have recompiled. And this is one of the first times it's exhibited in a community center. Of course, we had readings by Dr. John Moran Gonzalez and also Dr. Monica Munoz Martinez, who shared some of their writings as well. And their books are available here as too. What you also will see that's unique is that because the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center is multidisciplinary, you've got complementary visual artworks as well that were curated, picked specifically for this exhibit, and hint at the legacy of visual arts, music that you find here. And I think that's a powerful testament to what you've inherited, what you're cultivating, what's growing. And we're so happy that literature will now play a larger role in that. So coming in July, of course, it's the second Friday of every month. So that would be June, coming in June, which would be the second Friday in June. It'll be June 14th. We will have here Josie Mendez Negrete reading from Rooted in Clay, Veronica Castillo's Y Su Arte. And by the way, Veronica's studio is here in San Antonio as well. And she'll be joined by a poet from Houston, Stalina Emmanuel Villarreal, reading from her book, Wacha. And then I should mention in August, we'll also be hosting Ed Vega, the San Antonio Poet Laureate, who's here in the room. So a round of applause for him. You may have heard his entourage of cherubs and muses and horns. So everywhere he goes, there's attendance and whatnot. And then, of course, we are familia with our friends in El Valle, in McAllen. And one of the first times the Librotraficantes were hanging out in McAllen, we got to read at a wine bar where you were hosting a poetry reading. And I remember I and Lupe stood up and threw down there. Must have been about a decade ago, no? A long time ago, which was a lot of fun. And I'm so glad that we've been hanging out for that long. And we'll be hanging out for even longer than that. And of course, I say all that because Edward is putting a lot of time into activism by releasing other voices. And before I read the bio, I do want to remind people, every second Edward dedicates to reading someone else's work, editing that work, marketing that work, that is time he takes away from his writing. And we are torn. We're writers, teachers, and other things. But it's con mucho corazón that you do that because all these books that you've published, Edward, there's also books of yours own that didn't exist. I only mention it because you don't, and I want people to appreciate that. But con todo corazón, you're releasing all these other books, so it's wonderful to have you here today as a poet in your own right. And of course, I will now read the official bio. He's an award-winning poet and author of 9 collections of poetry. See, he could have written 90 because he's prolific. He is the 2018-2019 City of McAllen, Texas Poet Laureate, 2022 inductee of the Texas Institute of Letters, and publisher of the Flower Song Press. His writings have appeared in the New York Times Magazine, the Texas Observer, Los Angeles Review of Books, as well as other journals and anthologies. He resides in McAllen, Texas, with his wife Liliana and their daughter Luna Isabella. And tonight he's reading from his new collection, By Throat, by Miracles, New and Selected Poems. Please welcome Edward. Thank you for coming, Edward.
Thank you all for being here. So this collection is basically poems from my first 9 books and then new poems. So it's called New and Selected. Okay. This one is called Jazzista. What makes a jazz poet? Not his shoes, not mine, bent to one side like a matador waving a red trapo en la cocina to shoo away las moscas, laying on the lip of my taza de café con leche. Definitely not a grito. Not writing a poem during a cold docu of Miles or Nina talking in French, bon sang. An election is tweaked to the sound of a trumpet solo. Now that's Vox, like it sucks. Orale, cliche. Even as a Latino youth, we be real cool, but not too cool to be called a cool. Oh, so we stayed trucha, like Coltrane and Tito, Arturo y Cachao, Bebo y Bobo, stirring the beans with manteca de Gillespie. Jazzistas live like cucarachas. They lay low and grab you by the huevos when you least expect it. When everything around you seems to be dying, the only thing louder than a bomb is the slow death of a jazz sound, a hard jazz, an accusation, yeah, a bop, a hard 12-bar pandemic. I always say I'm gonna buy those little tabs but but sometimes I'll go to the poem and I don't want to read it, right? Robbed at knife point. The bus ride was bumpy and too fast. It was definitely a weekday. I always walked to the back of the bus, window seat facing the right side, where I could see the people get on and off. I could see the gutters, the businesses opening up early, the drama of the day unfolding, lovers holding hands, stray dogs panting and rummaging through trash, the homelessness of my city extending their hands. My view was of the grind, la lucha. I carried a backpack with books, cassette tapes, and markers for tagging, even though I sucked at it and had given up on it several years back. It was a constant for me. That day I jumped on the bus on 7th and Spring. I remember I was listening to some Roger and Zapp. I was a bit tired from the double shift I worked the day before. Between songs and reading from Rodriguez's Always Running, I heard voices, grunts, and the sound of people pushing against each other as the bus filled up. I scooted my body and leaned my head on the graffiti marked window, then dozed off. My eyes opened up a bit later to see a short, long haired kid, white t shirt and Dickies pants, Nike shoes, pinche cholo cagao. I dressed the same in my barrio. He kept looking around, hands in pockets, as if he were cold. The bus came to a stop near MacArthur Park. Want to see a melting pot? If you didn't get shot, stabbed, or drowned in the lake there, you were fortunate. That day, I got robbed at knife point. This is what I remember. The bus stopped, people were getting on and off, and this kid in his teens pulled out a knife and stuck it to my neck. With one hand while he took my watch and backpack, with the other jumped off the bus and walked away. The bus driver never saw it, and no one made a commotion. I looked at him run away with my bag. Inside, the pages of Ellison and Villaseñor became instant orphans. The bus slowly pulled away. I stared at the lake. A lone swan sat on its murky waters. I hadn't seen a swan so beautiful as that one, and haven't since. So while we're talking about, it's been Mother's Day, right? It's Mother's Day in El Salvador, Mexico, Guatemala, Belize. Um, I write a lot about my mom, and it's not always like, flowers and love and stuff like that, but more of just memories, right? Even though I do love my mother, don't get me wrong. But when you're writing, sometimes it just takes you to a memory or left field or whatever. But I was sitting we were at the Rio Grande Valley Poetry Festival, and one of the authors was putting on a workshop, and his prompt was do a poem about an article of clothing. And I was like, clothes, article of clothing. I was like, socks, t-shirt. Like I can't get creative. And then I just started, sitting there for a while and thinking. I was like, okay, I'll try to write about my mom's bra. And this one's titled Mama's Struggle. Mama always dressed for comfort. The hardest part was getting undressed. The tucking of large breasts into a cheaply made bra that by the end of the day left deep creases over her shoulders and along her sides. Sometimes she would ask one of her sons to help her with the strap and connect the little eye hooks. Mama's body had scars. A simple article of clothing, fabric, foam cups, slider rings, hooks, and underwires. Mama never complained. She patted the cuts with alcohol swabs and ointment. Mama had one bra and many scars. This one I read with the jazz poets many years ago at it's Luminaria, right? So is that the name of the festival? And I had never, read with music on the back in the background, and I thought it was cool. There's a lot of people there, and I read this poem, and it's titled "Lorca in the Barrio." It's an ode to Lorca's fable and round of the three friends. Here, let me get some water. Travieso, Chepe, Lalo, the three of them frozen. Travieso by the world of bullets, Chepe by the world of syringes and acid trips, Lalo by the marching of monks through his barrio. Travieso, Chepe, Lalo, the three of them burned. Travieso by the world of pigeon shit and chalk outlines, Chepe by the world of drive-by shootings and rucas with feathered hair, Lalo by the world of banned literature and dead lecturers. Travieso, Chepe, Lalo, the three of them buried. Travieso in Lupita's tattoo, Chepe in the carga going through his bloodstream, Lalo in the rooster's crow, the dog's howl, and the glossy eyes of his tecato father. Lalo, Chepe, Travieso. The three in my hands were three zoot scholars, three crooked cops, three birds of different races and autumn spirits that flew around landing in blood-stained sidewalks being outlined by death. Uno y uno y uno. Los tres enterrados, con la ternura del invierno, con la tinta negra de las palabras escritas antes del suicidio de la primavera, con las lágrimas de Sofía que espera ser realidad en el útero del verano, por la miel que llora la luna hace el triste mar en otoño. Three y dos y uno. I saw them run, hide, and die on the streets of Los Angeles, into a dark alley, into the night of anxiety-filled smog, into the voiceless screams and anguish of their mothers' open mouths, into my sadness of domestic abuse and alcoholism, into the bar with the velvet curtain, into my own death unannounced last year. I killed the last of the Chicano riders, and a few people in Arizona held their champagne flutes in the air while Menchita tucked in their little wonderful children to the tune of La Llorona breathing over them. Travieso, Chepe, Lalo, Chicanas are hard. But sometimes if you lay your head between their soft breasts, you can hear the cries of a new generation, of raza with the knowledge and power to make a man shit in fear, y eso me conforma. Cuando ya no pude ver las luces de la ambulancia pasando la loma sobre la calle César Chávez, entendí que me asesinaron también a mí. Esa noche en el barrio destaparon todas las sábanas blancas buscándome entre las caras fallecidas en las iglesias, los panteones, callejones y las aguas del río frío. Still they couldn't find me. No pudieron, no they couldn't. Sin balas en mi cohete, pero con un libro y lápiz en mi mano, empecé a escribir poemas. This one's titled Diez. 1. My mother's hands smell of minimum wage pan dulce. 2. Breakfast costs $2.25 before 11 a.m. No one should be starving between 7 and 11. 3. My brother's eyes are borrowed pools of ocean water. 4. My gums are losing your flavor. 5. I have replaced her eyes with a garden uprooted. 6. Sometimes I'm asked to chop parsley real fine. 7. Roll call. Grackles, widows, poets, glass cutters, and mannequin makers. 8. My dad saw a light. He ran to it. 9. Solitude. Thank you, Duke Ellington. 10. Bring a beehive to my funeral. Tell them all about it. This is a poem that I wrote at a Starbucks at the mall, watching a little kid trying to get his parents' attention. Generation Z. They both stare at their phones. Kid tugs at dad's shirt. Then mother's dress. Neither budge. Kid sits on floor, picks up a snake, eats the snake, then throws up. Kid stands up, begs for attention, sits back down, picks up a gun, puts gun in mouth, pulls the trigger. Parents stare at each other, get on their phone, download an app to give them instructions on how to cry. It didn't happen, but. Sleepless in pandemia. I can't sleep much these days, yet I'm tired and need to. I'm filled with strange dreams that seem to be building a miniseries of grim realities at every turn. In the morning, I let out the dogs. There's a yellow haze that floats in my town, a stick to your skin enfermedad. This pandemic, thinking, this pandemic has me thinking, is there a God? Then I remember the stories, the poetry and prose of the antepasados, the faith of my abuela, the observation of nature's language, and I breathe in place. Pandemia virus, we seem to be more together in this distance. This morning, the first flock of loros made their way to the wires above our house, cantando, a grackle perched, head lowered at a distance. The morning after. In the news, the lungs of the earth are ablaze. I lay my head back another day. My pillow is on the floor. I stretch, look at my hands, and my left thumb is still trembling. I walk outside, fill the basin with water, and listen to the birds gossip on branches above me. I talk to them, I feed them, I wait and watch. The mockingbird is the first to drink. I go back inside, run the water until it warms. The man in the mirror waits for my next move. We both stare. It's quiet throughout the home. A light snore escapes my daughter's partially open mouth. I kiss her forehead and tell her I love her. There's no coffee again, just a meow from behind saying, I'll be here when you get back. I drive off, stop to buy a pack of gum and cigarettes, coffee, and the paper. Maybe today's the day to write a poem for autumn. That's as cool as I can get nowadays. I can barely make a fist on days like this, and sometimes that's as cool as I want to be. God as tree, tree as God. I sometimes think God is in the trees, my tree especially. God is my tree. The birds that hover over his crown, angels who bring petitions and offerings from the four directions. God is the sun and the moon to the ancestors, the eternal dreamers preparing the way. God is the veins of Mother Earth, the roots, the rocks, the soil, the witness. I lay my hands on my God when I am fatigued. I lay my cheek on my God when I need an answer. I place my lips on my God when I am thankful. I sit at God's feet when I need a friend. I place my hands on my God when I'm losing faith. I sometimes think my God is in the trees, my tree, the trees I drive past, the trees on TV burning by the thousands, the ones falling alone in the forest, the new ones being planted and uprooted. My God in the trees, breathing slowly, not complaining, breathing harder, transforming, breathing, liberating themselves from a sin, breathing, unifying nature, breathing for the resurrection. My God, my life, tree. My dad suffered from alcoholism, my stepfather, and my mom would send him off to bed. Ya vete viejo a dormir, estás borracho. And we would all, be there, and mom would say, go check on dad. And, you know, we wanted to make sure he didn't, choke on his own vomit or whatever. I mean, he drank a lot. This one is titled Capsized. I always thought of dad as an ocean, spume frothing from his mouth. Mom would say, tilt his head to one side. I pretended I controlled the sea. Somewhere waves were created when I did that. So I looked at him and drew tiny boats on his lips and cheeks. He moaned and groaned, and I pretended the sea was mad. So I drew pirates on his chin. Sometimes the sea would gargle and toss back at me all the plastics and garbage, pieces of sailors and forgotten ships would emerge. One time he opened his eyes, and his green orbs flashed a mermaid, playing a violin, playing a song of longing. This one's titled Moon Christ. I watched the mummified drip cream over, untouching lashes, spotlight on saguaro, pressing pollen deeper into earth's sinuses. Show us the crypt, the sprouting hyacinth, or the simple rose. What's in the water, in the soul of rain? So far, so alone, so profound, yet a mystery. Is there a razor in your throat? What death did you have? Spotlight the peregrinos walking the stations. Is earth in your dreams? Do you hear sounds, whispers? I often think of your weeping, hanging there, aching. What sustains you, glowing crucifix in the night sky? I wrote a couple of poems that I want to share just to kind of, test it out on y'all. I haven't done any editing or anything on it, but I like them. So right now that I still like them, I want to read them. Because sometimes you don't like them, right? What happens in the spring? My mother says, I don't hear from you. It's been several weeks since I've called. Every time I think of dialing, I get sad. Sometimes I don't know why, but I know that speaking with her will make me cry. I ask my older brother of her health. I tell my therapist of my thoughts. My brother says she's okay. My therapist says that explains it. Dormant plants begin to grow again. My wife wants to go to Mexico, travel the country and exhale. She wants to visit the beaches, eat the food, and exhale. She wants to have conversations and embrace the culture and exhale. She wants to see fabrics and colors and exhale. My daughter sits at a desk, intricately twisting wire and looping the wire inside the eye of a bead. She prepares for vending her artisanal creations. She knows the lyrics to many songs. She bends words in her mouth that rattle her teeth. She blooms in humility. New seedlings sprout from the ground. I water the big vase, the womb of morning glory. The cacti is building a prickly pear, and the Queen Elizabeth rose bush is peeking out a bloom. Hibernating animals awake. I get up early, answer emails, whistle, arrange the books on my shelf, kneel to find a lost shoe, exhale for breath. The Earth's axis tilts towards the sun, resulting in longer and warmer days. There's never a warm day in the Magic Valley. It's as hot as the devil's armpit. The sun sets, California is still waving hello to me. The summer waits for the spring baton. Animals have babies. I am trying to catch Santa, the feral cat. She's been having too many babies and looks tired, wobbles to her dish for food, doesn't let me pet her, but knows I am taking care of her. Flowers start to bloom. So many colors have pushed up: the yellow perennial, the blue morning glory, the white lily of the valley. Daylight begins to win out over darkness. Fresh beginnings open a curtain to a new day. Forgiveness trumps animosity. A shortened insomnia. A city yawns. A mirror never fails a reflection. Trees position nests in a colic hold. It's okay to sleep in the nude, waking up to sunshine in our mouths and dial a worried mother. I think I wrote a song too, but I don't know how to sing it. No, I really can't try. I really can't try, believe me. This one's titled Mothers, and I just wrote it and I haven't gone through it. When mothers speak, children take refuge in the small hours of the night. When mothers die, their bones remain in the earth. They are never dust. They continue to nurture. Only gods decompose. The mothers of men will teach them of nature and strength, their voices a throbbing reminder of the dilemmas to come. I knew of a mother who flung herself from a balcony, naked and unapologetic. She was a broken limb from the yelping heavens. This mother sold her eyes to the pigeons cooing on the eaves for silence, sold her hands to the wild mountains that housed smog at dawn, exchanged her lips for future riots and a cup of coffee spiked with rum. Mother, 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 don't say you warned me of women. You never told me they would spread their legs and out would come cities and deep songs. From their skin, rattling chains and sin, tongue so bewitching I would write poems laced in diesel. Mother, 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 I know you left that night when you thought us asleep to gather seeds. Come morning, roots emerging from a garden of beakless blue birds with songs that rattle. I know you spent the afternoons cooking beans and watching television or listening to ballads of rotting fruit. I know of the catcalls of men you endured at the bus stop, whistles and chatter coming from the barrio demons. I know you murdered many men in dreams, waking up with blood in your mouth and hands. I know of the moments you looked out the window in silence and several times broke through the panes and flew far away to a place where every day was Saturday. Mother, come. One of the gods has a bed and blanket on the moon for you, water and bread. Your litanies for rest have been heard. There you can think of sunflowers. There you can drink. There you can sing your favorite songs and not wear clothes. There you can unwind and love sorrow. There you can run and find beautiful things. Madrecita, crepúsculo y tú, silencio, las estrellas, lazo de brillo de tus dientes, tu risa provocativa, la penumbra de tu cabello, suéñalo de ti, ojo y labio, anhelo, anhelo, lango, entrega total, tu boca y locura, locura, trémulo, sin aliento, ardiente, el espacio de un suspiro, luego despertar recuerdo, dolor, arrepentimiento, tus sollozos. Y otra vez en silencio las estrellas. Mother, Mother, Gloria, Dios te hizo hermosa como sonido tenue de las hojas, te dio el amanecer y las nenúfares, te dejó elegir un planeta con huerta, tus dedos de seda y ojos un fuego verde. Ese día en que tú naciste, perdieron la paciencia en el cielo. Por lento, qué lento teje, decían las mujeres eternas. Por eso rezas el rosario, por las mujeres que caminan en calles de oro. Dios te hizo hermosa como la floración de unas héroes nocturna en florecer. Te hizo con masa y agua, con las manos de su Hijo. Tu alma es el viento, una canción al final de la tarde, las uñas de la noche. Te hizo morena porque también hay fuego en el cielo. Mother, madre, oh madrecita. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. And I like those poems too. So, gracias, Eduardo. Gracias. And before I call up Christina to say a few words, I would like to mark my transformation from the literary curator at the Latino Bookstore at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center to full-time director of Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say, by doing two things. One, Edward, I mentioned earlier the cost of giving your love, attention, and genius to others through the act of publishing Flower Song Press. But I have to also say, from this collection too, I don't want to overlook how your creativity is shaped by looking at that other work and shaping it for publication, because these are really powerful pieces. And when I hear them, it's clear that it is the act of being a publisher and engendering these works and sending them out. And I say all that too, because likewise, I'm a writer, but I'm also an activist like you with Nuestra Palabra. And there are things we do that give up time from writing, but the payoff is powerful because it's ability to create poetry and prose where we go from workshopping ideas on pages to workshopping cities and industries. And I think that's really what's going on. I think that's so exciting to see it and continue that, and that will keep blossoming. And I guess the last thing I want to do too, I want to speculate on the debate of whether or not we should clap after every poem. I have a definite ruling. I think it was beautiful today. It was very organic. Like folks clapped during some of the poems, and then some of the poems we just didn't, and it was just right. I think some of them were so a little different pace than the others that we were just like, what? And then some were like, some were a certain length, and then some we just all together clapped. So as a prose writer, chiming in that debate, how beautiful that our community has the answer built inside and reveals it with joy. And that's what it's about. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to call to the mic La Mera Mera, whose vision has kept this beautiful institution intact and thriving during the COVID shutdown, which some people treat like ancient history, but some places went down, and has brought us the Latino Bookstore from now until the end of time. Christina, bye.
Tony's introductions because he's always very effusive in his praise and his recognition of people's work, and that's why I wanted to work with Tony from the very beginning. We knew we were going to be opening up a bookstore. Actually, when I arrived here, the mandate for this building, there was already funding to renovate it, and the mandate was to do a gift shop. And that's what we were supposed to open, a gift shop. But I said, no, we need books. Of course we need books, and The Guadalupe is a multidisciplinary center, and we try to cover all the arts disciplines, and at the time, and we do so, we cover some better than others. We're working at trying to provide at least something in each of the disciplines. At the time, the literary arts was not a strength of the Guadalupe at that moment. And we said, no, wait, hang on, we'll get a literary program going once we open the bookstore. That's going to be the right place and the right time, the right context, the right setting. And all along, I knew that I wanted to work with Tony. And I thought, well, everything now is kind of remote. Everything, now we have the internet and phones and everything. So, now we can work with people everywhere. And Tony had such a history of activism in the literary arts, in the book scene. So that's why I wanted to work with Tony, and I wanted to make sure that we got this off on the right foot, and mainly with enthusiasm, with that passion, that Tony has been putting into his work for many decades already, and everybody knows how hard he has worked at this. So I said, Tony, and I told him from years before, I think, I said, we're gonna open it sometime. We're gonna open it. It took several years to open the store, but eventually we did. So muchas gracias. Thank you, Tony. And he's been driving here from Houston every month for 2 years. So I really, really appreciate that. So please help me thank Tony. And not just Tony, but he brings a whole entourage, and he has his whole team built up, and his supporters that he's managed to rally around the causa. And the other one is Rodrigo, who's here with us today. And Rodrigo also, has been driving over here to San Antonio from Houston almost every month, being here, streaming the program, and making sure, documenting it, y batallando, especially at the beginning, trying to get all of this right, and the acoustics in this room, which aren't very good at all, and all of that. So, Rodrigo, thank you very much for coming and helping us, and, documenting this very important work. So you documented the first couple of years of the Guadalupe Latino Bookstore. So thank you very much, Rodrigo. Please help me thank Rodrigo as well. And we have a regalito for you guys. Alma, who is our store manager. Alma's the one that makes sure everything is running here. Has some little regalitos for them. And show everybody the bag, Alma, because I still have to do commercials. It's a bag of our 42nd annual Tejano Conjunto Festival. Okay, don't forget, next weekend at Rosedale Park, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, puro conjunto music, beer, lots of fun, lots of music. And this is our bag for this year's Conjunto Festival. Para que se acuerden, and that's right. It's not this is a transition. I want to congratulate the Nuestra Palabra team, all of you guys, for the recognition and the funding resources that they got in Houston. Que bueno, muy merecido after all the years that you've been putting into it. So they've got work to do now over there in Houston. They got money to do it, so that means they got to work. And that means, and I know they're busy at it, but that's right. We're going to continue to work together, especially for October. The launch of the Latino Poetry Anthology by the Library of the Americas. We're going to have a big poetry bash here, okay? It's hopefully, it'll be outside. We're going to, and you inspired me with the jazz poets. I was like, because we want to have some kind of floricanto and music and poetry. And I thought, okay, that's what we can do. But he inspired me by bringing it up, So, so we want to make sure that we incorporate, the music and everything into the program. So once again, muchas gracias. Thank you. And thank you all of you for being here with us today. So muchas gracias. Hasta pronto. Yeah.
And of course, the main point of tonight will be get our book signed. So look forward to Jacinto and Edward having a seat. I'm going to abuse my position for one last time and get mine signed first. But also to sit on each other.